Howdy folks, Jake here with Banjo Ben again. And for this week's tech tip, we're going to be talking about string slots. We're going to be dealing with the nut since this is a guitar. And on a guitar, that's the only slots you have. The saddle does not have slots. They just rely on the close proximity to the bridge pin hole to keep the string in place. But on a banjo or mandolin or something like that, you'll also have the same thing to contend with on both ends. You'll have slots for your strings here at the nut. You'll also have them back this way for the bridge. So there's a couple reasons we would need to mess with the string slots. One reason being is if you develop a buzz over time. What can happen is that, and this can happen both in the nut or in the saddle, is that over time that string vibrating in the slot and being tuned up continually, or detuned whenever you change the strings, basically just a lot of action in the nut slot can cause one of two things to happen. It can kick up debris in the slot, which is going to make the connection with the string in the slot less stable, and it'll cause a buzz or a rattle. Or it can actually, over time, it can wear the slot to where, like if we're looking at it from this angle, the slot's going uphill, which means that the string's going to be lightly contacting the leading edge of the nut, and it's going to vibrate in there. What you want to have, and I'll show you this whenever we get to slotting this one, what you want to have is a very clean edge on the front side. So on this very edge here, that's where you want utmost contact. And how we achieve that, drop the camera down like from a profile there, yeah. How we achieve that, if you can see the way these slots are running correctly, is you slot it at an angle like this to where the leading edge, where the string leads off of the nut on the playing scale side of the guitar or whatever instrument, is the most solid and clean contact. See, and you get that by making it run downhill toward the tuner pegs. If it was running uphill, you would have the opposite effect, and the string would be making most contact on the back side, which would cause it to rattle up here. So anytime we're doing any slotting with the nut, we want to make sure we go at a slight downward angle. So that's one reason, is for buzz. And you can, it's fairly easy to diagnose which part of the instrument is buzzing. It could be either at the nut or the saddle. How you can kind of diagnose that is you simply play the string. Now this one isn't doing it. There's no buzz. I'm doing this for action reasons on this guitar. But if there was a buzz, if I played an open string, it would buzz, obviously. If I noted the string and the buzz went away, essentially I eliminated what was happening at the nut, which means it is at the nut that's the problem. But if I fret the note and move up and it's still buzzing, that means it's the saddle that's the problem. Now it can be both. So once you do one and get that fixed, you kind of have to keep troubleshooting beyond that. But it's very rare that it's both. Usually it's one or the other. So on this guitar, let's move along. I'm simply doing a one string, and I've actually already taken a little off this, but I kind of paused because I thought it'd make good video matter. So what we're doing on this one, if you drop the camera down again, Michelle, you can see this E string on this guitar. Now these guitars are typically set up wonderfully from the factory, but you can see it's higher in the slot than all the other ones. All the other ones are perfection. The E string was just too tall. You can see how much travel we have there to the first fret. That makes it just simply harder to play than it needs to be. So that's one thing we do to everything here. If we're wanting to lower the action at the nut, you need just enough clearance for that string not to vibrate. And the trick with this is just to go a little at a time. There's all kinds of specialized tools and gauges you can use to kind of get a good starting point, but there's a lot of factors here. The height of the saddle matters, the relief in the neck matters as to how far you're going to do this. So if you've got, if you're lowering the action at the nut, the best advice is just to go a little at a time and to keep checking your progress. For someone who doesn't have all that specialized equipment or knowledge, you can just go a little bit at a time. Now, I do recommend having a proper set of nut files or slotting files. You can use these on either the nut or the bridge of whatever instrument you're working on. In pinches before, I've improvised by just taking a piece of sandpaper and tearing a chunk off tear a little chunk off, and then folding it in half, you know, sandpaper of various thicknesses, and then, you know, running that in the slot if I need to clean it out. Forgive me, I'm knocking stuff over there on my table. So anyway, on to this. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just show you the action here. You take the string down where you can get it out of the slot, move it out of the way, and then you take the slot file of the appropriate size. I typically like to go a little bit higher. So on this one's slotted for a 56. I'd go up to like a 58 or a 60. Would still be within range. And like I said, you go slightly at an upward angle. Now on this one, we are trying to cut the height down too. So we're just diligent in that. And depending on the nut material, you want to pay close attention to what you're doing. Depending on the nut material and how good your file cuts, it can take several passes or maybe just a few passes to get down where you need to be. So I kind of had an idea before I started. So once I do my heavy pressure cutting, I just kind of lighten up, move it back and forth a few times to smooth everything out in there. Then I pop the string back in place. That pop was it wasn't seated at the bridge, it was slipping up against the bridge plate from the bridge pin. So then we tune it up. That's about perfect right there. It matches, pretty much matches the height of the other strings you can see. We got a good amount of clearance still where it's not going to buzz, but it's going to feel great. So anyway, that's really all there is to it. I'm sure I forgot to mention some particulars, so if you have any questions, leave them below. And as always, we appreciate you folks a whole bunch, and we thank you for watching. See you next time.